Oh, YouTube, what's really good? My name is Vivid, and welcome back to Tier List Tuesday, the show where we do tier list videos on Tuesdays. It's an incredibly original idea, very unique title, and you cannot convince me otherwise. Today's tier list is going to be ranking all of the returning Pokemon in the Crown Tundra DLC. If you don't know, these are leaked. This is your one spoiler warning. If you don't want to know all the Pokemon that are returning, or I guess my thoughts on them competitively, then you can leave now. But before we get into today's video, I do want to say three things really quickly. One, please remember I have Halloween shirts available. They are on my Teespring live right now. Emily, my wife, she knocked it out of the park with the design. I think they're incredibly adorable. They will be available until Halloween. If you would like one, click the top link in the description down below. Go pick one up. The second thing, if you enjoy what I'm doing here, you probably also enjoy watching me do things live. The Twitch link will be the second link in the description down below. Go ahead and follow me over on Twitch. I stream every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'm just doing Pokemon related things right now. It's been a good time. Streams have been popping. The third thing is that if you haven't already, I would love for you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. A lot of my views are coming from people who aren't subscribed. If that's you, please go ahead and consider clicking that sub button. Also, really quick, moving forward, I would like Tier List Tuesday to be a community effort. So if you have suggestions for what you want to see me rank on a tier list, leave that in the comment section down below. If something is repeated a bunch or if something gets a ton of likes, then I will do that tier list, and it's as simple as that. And with all of those things out of the way, let's just get into this tier list. All right, so we're here in the tier list, and like I said, we're actually going to be ranking every Pokemon returning in the Crown Tundra DLC. These are going to be ranked by their competitive viability, but not just restricted to one format. Like, I'm not just ranking based on VGC, I'm not just ranking based on Draft League, and I'm not just ranking based on like in-game laddering or showdown laddering or anything like that. I'm trying to take into account like all formats. That's why the top tier here is multi-format Powerhouse. Like, if a Pokemon is good in several formats, or if it's great in several formats, it will go into this tier. Hyper competitive is like, this Pokemon is very competitive in the format it is competitive in, or it can be multiple, but maybe it's not like every format. It's not a Powerhouse across all three of the main three forms of competitive Pokemon. Third is strong, like this Pokemon's a strong contender. It's always viable on your team. Role player is like, this Pokemon, it serves a role. Like in Draft League, when you think of role players, you think of like the mid-tier picks, things that like really bring your team together, kind of like glue Pokemon. Niche value is like, niche would be something that's like a really obscure strategy in VGC, or like a value pick in Draft League is a low tier Pokemon you think you can get value out of somewhere during the season. That is bad. Before we get into this, I just want to ask, what Pokemon are you most excited for that's returning in the Crown Tundra DLC? It can be because it is your favorite Pokemon because it has a cool shiny, or you can like it competitively. It doesn't matter. For this tier list, I normally go in like a completely random order. I'm actually just going to go in the order these are listed because it looks like they're listed by Gen. So we're going to start with Jinx. I think of Jinx as like a niche pick. I don't think it has like a ton of viability. Also, really quick, I would like to mention, I'm not really going to be going into like all the new toys these Pokemon get to play with. If you want to see that video, there will be a card up here that'll take you to a video where I go over not only every returning Pokemon, but all of the new moves they get. So all the potential buffs they get. So if you would like to see that, go click on that. Okay, back to the tier list. Electabuzz, I think, is also like, I think a lot of these are going to be like niche value picks, like some of the like, I don't know, more meh Pokemon. It takes a lot for me to say a Pokemon's really bad. Like in most instances, you can get value out of everything. Something I want to note, this doesn't include any new Pokemon. So like none of the new Galarian birds, none of the new Regis, like it doesn't include that. It includes all the legendaries, which I have the least experience with. So take my rankings with a grain of salt on that. But also this tier list I found has like random middle evolutions. Like if you look here, there's like a random Metang, or like there's a few more, or like Combuskin. I think these are because these are maybe pseudo viable in like Pokemon Showdown tiers. So like maybe Metang is viable in like the lowest tier or something. Magmar, I think I'm gonna put Magmar in bad. I think Electabuzz has like a reasonable speed tier. It has like a reasonable special attack stat. You can get some value out of it. Magmar, I feel like, is not in the same boat there. And I could be wrong on that. And if I am, feel free to call me out in the comments. We can have a discussion. I'm gonna put Omastar as a role player. I'm actually going to put both of these as role players, Omastar and Kabutops. They're both role players in the vein that they both get access to Swift Swim, so they give you more options on Swift Swim teams, basically. They give you more options on Rain teams. I don't think that they are strong by any means, but I do think that role player is a good place for them to be. Aerodactyl is kind of a hard sell for me. It's definitely not going to see play in like a ton of formats. It's not going to see top tier play. If we still had Mega Aerodactyl with the moves this thing's getting, I think it would be very good. It's weird to say that these two are role players and Aerodactyl is a niche value pick, but I think Aerodactyl is a good rock setter. Like, it'll be good in leagues as like a fast rock setter, kind of like a suicide lead, and it got some new toys to play with. So I'm going to put it in role player for now. It might be more of a niche value pick. I guess role player is like a confusing term. Like, it would play a role, right? Because it would set stealth rocks really quickly. I think that's fine. Articuno, I think, has basically always been a niche pick. It's not very good. I don't think it's very good. The typing is really bad. But I am going to give Moltres a much better score here. I think it's because the combination of stabs is much better for it. Also, I guess Articuno gets a little bit better now that boots is a thing. Actually, both of these Pokemon get a ton better now that boots are a thing. I think that Articuno actually, you can make the claim that Articuno actually is a role player now. I think it's basically never been good because it had such a massive stealth rock weakness, but with heavy duty boots, that's just a massive buff for both of these Pokemon. I think I'm gonna put Moltres in strong now because Moltres has been good even in like the OU format on Showdown. Moltres is a really good draft Pokemon, just has like a really good combination of stats, really good dual stab type attacks. Just Stealth Rocks has always held it back, but Stealth Rocks really aren't even fantastic in this generation. Yeah, I'm gonna slam Moltres into strong, and I'm gonna put Articuno into role player. Sorry if I kind of stumbled over my thoughts there. I was just really kind of amazed by the fact that I think Articuno might actually be pretty good for once. Ice type stab is phenomenal, and flying type stab is also good. I don't think you get as much coverage out of ice and flying, or like as much breaking potential as you do out of something like Moltres, especially when you consider that Articuno's like really strong attack is Blizzard, whereas Moltres is Fire Blast, so just a more accurate, powerful move. But yeah, I think Articuno might actually be a role player. I could even see it being strong. Like, it's going to be a pretty reasonable defog mon now, right? That's insane. Zapdos, I think we can put in hyper competitive. I don't know enough about previous VGC formats to know if Zapdos would be a multi-format powerhouse, but it's really, really strong on just like singles ladders. It's really strong in Showdown. It's really, really strong in Draft League. I think Zapdos might be the first like big miss here. I think Zapdos could be a multi-format powerhouse. I've definitely seen Zapdos before be kind of strong in the VGC meta, but this was way back in the day. Like the first time they ever allowed legendary Pokemon like Groudon, Lugia, Pokemon like that. Sort of like the first season they ever allowed that in VGC. People were running these like kind of weird spammy Zapdos Groudon teams so you could discharge an EQ. It wasn't very good, but people tried it. Dragonite, I think, is going to be hyper competitive. I don't think Dragonite sees a ton of VGC play, honestly. I don't think it will. It might. It wouldn't surprise me because it has a lot of bulk, especially with it's like the multi-scale or the wonder scale. I don't remember. Whatever scale ability gives it all of its bulk. It could be viable, and it also gets access to like max airstreams, which is really good into max formats. So I could see it being a multi-format powerhouse. Same with these two, both of them. But I'm gonna put them both in hyper competitive. I'm gonna try and save multi-format powerhouse for Pokemon that are like really good in multiple formats. Crobat, I think, is going to be a role player. Crobat's basically always a role player. It's not a bad thing. Like, this looks low in the tier list. This is a good tier to be in because this is like you build teams entirely around this. Like, you have your like really strong pieces, and then you have your role players. I think Crobat's basically always a role player. It does a little bit of everything, but it doesn't do anything fantastically. Raikou, Entei, Suicune. These are really interesting because, as far as I know, they aren't very good in any like doubles format, so they're not fantastic in VGC. What we're looking for like I guess let's just find an example down here that I think everyone can agree with, and that's Landorus Therian, right? Landorus Therian's a multi-format powerhouse. For the longest time, it was considered one of the like top 2 to 3 picks in Draft League. It's really good in like the Showdown metagame. It's really good on like Battle Spot ladder, and it's also insane in VGC, right? Like, this Pokemon just does a lot. It's just like a combination of its abilities, its type, its stats, like everything it does makes for a really overtuned, very powerful Pokemon. It might not be as good this format, It looks like there are some Pokemon that can potentially check it and threaten it out of the metagame, or like not threaten it out. It's always going to be like, I think it's going to be present, but make it to where it's not as dominant. But this is a good example for a multi-format powerhouse, which is why you'll see things that you might think should go here falling into the hyper competitive category. I'm gonna put Raikou in strong. I don't think it's ever really hyper competitive. Like it's a really strong piece. You draft it highly. Like I think like third, fourth pick Raikou wouldn't be unreasonable. Kind of same for all of these. I think these are all very strong. These didn't suffer the same problems as the birds, where like being part flying type just meant that rocks destroyed you. I think Suicune we can put into hyper competitive though. Suicune is normally the best of the three. Entei and Raikou are normally strong. Suicune, just like being such a bulky water type, gives it massive advantages that these two don't have access to. I think it's always kind of been like Suicune, Raikou, Entei in terms of viability. At least that's in my brain, but this might just be the draft league player in me coming out. I also think Suicune is probably the most viable inside of VGC format, so like inside doubles, just because it gets access to Icy Wind. I think this generation it gets Helping Hand. So this would be my rankings here. I think that these are all strong pieces. I think Suicune just edges out these two. All right. Now we're getting the first set of legendaries. I'm gonna rank these kind of strangely just because like I don't know how these fit inside of VGC format. My guess is that these two Pokemon aren't very good, right? Like in VGC, like these aren't Groudon and Kyogre, right? That's my initial guess. So I'm going to be ranking them as such. As far as I can tell, I think that Ho-Oh looks to be hyper competitive now. Again, with the addition of boots, I think Ho-Oh it has Regenerator, which now should be a lot easier to get with ability patches or capsules or whatever they're called. I think Ho-Oh is going to be hyper competitive. I think Lugia is basically always a strong sort of like defensive pick. Mind you, I don't think these Pokemon are very good in VGC, but in sort of like a singles metagame. So basically, these are never legal in draft either, unless it's like a Uber's draft. Like no one ever allows things like this to just run around. I'm going to knock my drink over. But these will be, you know, sort of like in the Ubers metagame, like the Smogon Ubers Pokemon Showdown metagame. I think Ho-Oh is probably better. I think that's just my inclination. The typing is better in terms of like breaking and damage output. It gets access to Sacred Fire. The addition of boots, I think, makes it insane. Like boots, this Regenerator sounds very strong. So I'm going to put it in hyper competitive. If these are really good in VGC, I'll be happy because I think they're cool Pokemon. Lugia is just always like really defensive, cool. Like Aeroblast is a cool move that it gets, but it's mostly just like it's known for being like bulky, tanky, kind of like Stally. Sceptile. Dude, I don't think I would even call Sceptile a role player. I think I'm gonna stick it in niche value pick. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's like Magmar. You know what I mean? I think I'm gonna slam it here. I think it's going to be fine to pick up, like if it's a low tier Pokemon, as just a way to like add speed to your team. But you're not going to see this in VGC. This will be drafted pretty low. This Pokemon is just okay. Combuskin, I'm gonna kind of like I'm gonna ignore these for now. These like middle evolutions. I kind of wish I could edit this tier list and delete them, but I didn't want to go through and make my own tier list from scratch. So we're just gonna ignore middle evolutions for now. Blaziken. Blaziken's hard to rate because it's always banned in draft leagues and it always gets pushed into Ubers in the singles ladder. And I don't play Ubers, so I don't know how strong it is there. My inclination is that Blaziken is going to be strong. It's going to be good, right? Like I would think Blaziken will be good. I think it'll be strong in any format that allows speed boost Blaziken. It's going to be good in there, except for maybe Ubers, right? Like I think it'll be fine in VGC as like, I don't know, like a cleaner. Like it might make a good max target because you don't have to max Airstream to get speed boosts and you can max Knuckles, so that might be cool. You can play it mixed. I'm going to put it in strong. It might be hyper competitive and I'm kind of missing here. Actually, I'm gonna hedge and say hyper competitive. Like I don't know if the Series 7 rules have been set in stone. Like if Pokemon like Kyogre and Groudon are legal, then I think Blaziken gets a lot worse. But if they aren't legal and just legendaries like Articuno, Moltres, Zapdos, the Genies, if things like that are legal, I think Blaziken actually looks to be pretty strong. Just getting a speed boost and then max knuckling is kind of a lot. And if you get both of those in the same turn, then I think it stands a chance to be very strong in the VGC format. Could be wrong. But again, this is always going to be banned in like draft and in single ladders. Swampert. I think Swampert is going to be a role player more than anything else. I don't think it got any real like impactful new toys to play with. I think it'll be a role player. It's kind of always like, it's always a strong Pokemon. It's a strong pick, good, great typing, but it's not like, you wouldn't say it's like hyper competitive in most formats, at least. I don't think like this isn't going to see play in VGC. This isn't going to like dominate the singles ladder, at least not like in the OU tier. Like it'll be good in whatever tier it falls in, but I don't know. Like it's going to be a decent draft pick Pokemon, so I'm going to put it in role player. Aggron. I think Aggron's more of a niche value pick. The like 2 4x weaknesses to really common attacking types like fighting and ground is tough. It's weak to fire. Like this thing's problem has always been not that it doesn't have like great stats or a good move pool. It's just the typing holds it back. Steel Rock is really hard to make work. If this thing had like a killer speed stat and the same attack stat, then I think you would make a case that it would probably be like a good late game cleaner, but it's just so slow and I don't know. I think it's a niche value pick. Like you don't hate to draft something like this, right? Like it'll set you stealth rocks. You might be able to head crash things to death, but this definitely isn't going to kill a ton of metagames. Like that would be killing it on the ladder, and it's not going to be doing a ton of work in BGC. The Niddos I think are going to be strong. I'm going to go ahead and do them both. I think Niddo King and Niddo Queen have been missing. Like this metagame has been desperately missing them. They give you really good special ground types, which I think is fantastic. They're not, I don't think these are typically like great in VGC. Their speed stats are like kind of awkward, but these are going to be really strong in like they'll probably be like UU threats on the Pokemon Showdown metagame. They're going to be really strong draft picks. These are always like fantastic. Like Niddo Queen's always like a fantastic like offensive support Pokemon, and Niddo King's always a fantastic breaker. These Pokemon, they're just really strong. Altaria is going to be bad. Losing its Mega means this Pokemon's essentially it's not viable. It's just not. We can move on. What is this saying? Credilli. I really love Credilli. I can't believe I forgot its name for a second. I think I want to put it in role player, but that would just be me being biased because I like it. It's a niche value pick. The typing is interesting. You get cool coverage out of it. I think it gets Power Whip this generation, so you can run Power Whip for strong physical grass offense instead of running something like Giga Drain, even though Giga Drain might just be the better move because this thing just wants to sit and play and kind of like toxic things and sap energy, like recover health, set stealth rocks. It's a value pick for sure. You won't see this thing like killing it on the ladder, or I feel like I'm saying that a lot. I'm just trying to explain like why everything is falling in the tier it is. I think Armaldo is bad. It gets Swift Swim, but it's barely usable. It doesn't benefit from it in the way that Kabutops and Omastar do, and the typing is bad. I think this thing's bad. I mean, I would love to be wrong because it's a cool Pokemon. It's like cool design, but I just don't think it has enough going on for it to make it super usable. Absol, I'm in the same boat. I don't even think I would put it in a niche value pick. It has like a fantastic attack stat, and then everything else is super middling. I just don't think Absol is going to be used at all. All right, so Walrein is another Pokemon that I'm like fond of because I used to play with it. I used to play with like this Ice Hail Stall team. I have a hard time even putting it in niche value pick. I think you could make a case for Walrein because like it is pretty tanky. Its typing doesn't lend to that at all. Like Water Ice is not a fantastic defensive typing for a defensive Pokemon, but I think it has like enough going on for it statistically, and like ice coverage again is just very good. So you kind of get some points just on that alone. I just think that Walrein is a little bit of a step above these four, right? So that's why I'm putting it in niche value pick and not just in bad. Relicanth is bad. I'm not even gonna. I don't even know what this thing does. Honestly, like I couldn't tell. I think it gets Rockhead. Maybe it gets Swift Swim. I don't know. I'm going to move on from this because thinking about this Pokemon, I'm just going to get mad because I thought it was really cool when I first saw it, and I think it's basically never been good. Salamence is a multi-format powerhouse. And hear me out. I don't know that Salamence has ever been fantastic in sort of like a VGC or a doubles format. I really think that Salamence is going to be fantastic in this format now, because almost similar to Blaziken, but better, the combination of Moxie plus Max Airstream is going to be nuts. So you can raise your speed. Once you get kills, you get Moxie boosts. That's insane. I think Mint is going to be a terrifying Pokemon to play against. I think there's strong potential that this gets banned from formats, well, any format that allows maxing, right? So like it'll be fine in draft leagues that don't allow maxing, and it'll be fine in like the singles metagames that ban maxing, but and it's not gonna get banned in VGC. Unless they do another like weird top 16 ban list thing and this thing's just top of the list. But I think it's going to be a threat in basically every format it's legal in. I'm going to skip Metang because, again, we're skipping the middle evolutions here. Metagross, I think, is going to be hyper competitive. I don't think Metagross has been in a position where it's been hyper competitive for a long time, but there is a serious lack of like fantastic steel types in the game right now, which I think gives Metagross a pretty good in here. Like, it also has really interesting max options where it's already really defensive, so you can start like max quaking and max steel spiking to boost its defenses even further. Yeah, I think Metagross is going to be very good. I don't think it's necessarily going to be like fantastic in a doubles format, but basically every singles format, I think it'll be fine. Well, I guess if I'm talking about maxing, I think maybe it actually has a shot in singles formats. Yeah, I don't know. I think Metagross is going to be very competitive. Regirock and Regice, I think, are a step below Registeel. I don't know if that's a controversial take. I just feel like these two never really offer as much as Registeel does. And again, the metagame is in a position where we don't have fantastic steel types. I'm going to put Registeel in strong. All these got body press except for Regice, or Regice, whatever you want to call it. Which I think gives them, like, you know, a little bit more play, like especially Regirock having such a like massively high defense stat and Registeel having a good defense stat. I think that body press is like a cool addition to their kits. I think that this is probably like an accurate representation of them though. Steel, rock, ice, right? Like, I feel like this has kind of always been the order in which they've been. Well, that's not true. In Gen 3, Regice was actually very good. But in recent history, I feel like this is kind of the order in which these are decent. Like, again, like the Regis are inherently defensive Pokemon if you just look at their stats, and Regice is not a fantastic typing to be a defensive Pokemon because Ice type sucks defensively. The Latis, I want to believe that these are going to be, they're either multi-format powerhouses or they're hyper competitive. They're essentially the same Pokemon now. I think that the like sort of the moves that they both learn moving over kind of like patches all the holes. Like previously Latios got Dragon Dance and Latias didn't. Now Latias gets Dragon Dance. Latios might not get Healing Wish though, which I think Latias does. So I don't know. Either way, they're effectively the same Pokemon. Latias is a little bit more defensive. Latios is a little bit more offensive. I think that I would be surprised if these weren't strong in every format they were viable in. And honestly, that alone just wants me to slam them into multi-format powerhouse. I might be overestimating them here, but if I'm overestimating them, it's not by much. Like, they're either going to be multi-format powerhouses because they're going to be good in draft, they're going to be good in singles, they're going to be, I really think these are going to be good in VGC. Or if they whiff on VGC, then they're at least going to be hyper competitive in every other format. Okay, Kyogre, Groudon, Rayquaza. I don't think we really need to like spend a lot of time talking about these. If you have ever played in any metagame where these are legal, you just understand that they're very strong Pokemon. Rayquaza stops weather shenanigans. Groudon does sun shenanigans. Kyogre does rain shenanigans. Actually, I feel like without their primal forms, Groudon is probably just hyper competitive. It's maybe not on the same level as Kyogre. It's just like Sun teams historically haven't been as strong, but now I guess there's like a lot of good Sun pieces, right? Like Venusaur is still kicking. That's really strong. Max Charizard is still thinking, yeah, these are all very strong. These Pokemon are going to be meta defining. If these are legal in VGC, they're going to change the meta. The meta will warp around them. In a draft league where Uber's around, the meta is going to warp around these. In the Uber's tier, the meta is going to warp around these. They're multi-format powerhouses. I don't know what to tell you. Basculin and Rampardos. Is this Basculin or Bastiodon? What is Basculin? It's a fish. Bastiodon and Rampardos. I think these are I think this is like a pretty accurate testament, right? Like, I don't think Bastiodon's ever done anything cool ever. Again, Steel Rock is just really, really hard to work with. Mono Rock isn't great, but this thing at least has a phenomenal attack stat. So I think this is kind of where these go. Like, this is again just like, and it's not like, I feel like it's a super defensive Pokemon, but like it doesn't even have the offensive prowess as Aggron. So like you can use it to set Stealth Rocks, and I think it gets Metal Burst, which has been a cool move that no one ever uses because it's weird. Yeah, I think this is pretty accurate. Spiritomb, yeah, we're gonna put it in niche value pick. It's like, it used to be really cool whenever it had 0 weaknesses, and even then it wasn't fantastic. Now it has a weakness to probably the best or one of the best types in the game, and it just doesn't do anything. I mean, it's a cool Pokemon. Like, it looks really cool, and its lore is cool, but it's just a niche or value pick. All right, Garchomp, multi-format powerhouse, right? I mean, Garchomp, I think, is not going to be as oppressive as Minceer. If they'd given Garchomp Dragon Dance, I would think Garchomp was going to be the nuts. Like, I think it already might be really, really insane, kind of like oppressive in just like a draft league format, right? Where you're playing like a much more limited metagame. But like in Smogon, I think this thing is going to be nuts. Like, there's also been kind of a lack of fantastic ground types. It's kind of like Excadrill or Bust right now, which, don't get me wrong, Excadrill is an insane Pokemon. But dude, I think Garchomp is going to be really, really strong. It might not be good in VGC. I can't attest to this. My like limited VGC experience is probably the weakest link of this tier list, in that I can't really tell you which Pokemon are going to be fantastic in VGC and which aren't. But if I had to guess, I would say this is at least going to see play on typing and stats alone. Electivire, I want to put it in role player, but I think that would be a lie. I really do, but I think that would be a lie. Dude, it sucks that I'm about to slam Electivire in the same tier as Electabuzz, right? Like, maybe I need to reevaluate Electabuzz being here. It's not a role player. These are role players. These Pokemon, like, you can build teams, like you can build compositions around them. These Pokemon, I guess these are niche. They're value picks. Like, I love Magmortar. I think it does a lot. It gets a lot of coverage. It's just like kind of an awkward speed tier. I don't know. I think these Pokemon are good for what they are. I don't think I can put them in role player, because in a way that like Omastar and Kabutops, like this is kind of like, I think, the threshold for role player, right? Like, these Pokemon play like a specific role on a team, whereas these are sort of like value picks. I guess the niche area here is like, these would be very niche picks in VGC. These would be value picks in like a draft. And then this tier kind of like falls a little bit short for like Smogon laddering or like Showdown laddering, because these are just like lower tier Pokemon, right? Like, these are like your NU RU Pokemon, which I guess I could have like specified that over here, but that's where these fall in. Golbat, we're skipping middle evolutions here. The Lake Trio. The Lake Trio, you say? They all got access to Nasty Plot this generation. I think Azelf's already, like, it's had it for a while. I think Azelf typically falls into the role of a role player. It's a really strong Pokemon. It hits hard. It has good coverage. I feel like all of these typically fall into the role of role players. Like, these Pokemon are not good in VGC. I could be wrong. I have a feeling they're not good in like doubles formats, but they fall in the role of role player in like other formats. So I think like probably in this order, maybe, or no, probably. I think Uxie's probably better than Mesprit, right? Because Mesprit's kind of like jack of all trades, master of none, whereas Azelf is offensive and then Uxie is defensive. And normally, like, for Pokemon to be better, they need to be more focused on what they're doing. I think this is fine. I think these are role player Pokemon. Dialga and Palkia, these are, I have no clue. Dialga has a really good typing, very, very strong, good special attacker, kind of defensive. I don't think these are like, these aren't on the level of Groudon and Kyogre. I do not believe. I do not have faith in that. If I'm wrong, please let me know. I think these are going to be, I would slam these probably in the strong tier. I think these probably fit. Actually, I think Palkia is better. I I think Palkia probably edges out Dialga a little bit, right? Just like based on typing. Actually, I don't know. Steel is pretty good in a max meta. So like being able to max Steel Spikes, you can just build like a defensive set. Maybe I need to think about that a little bit more. Also, I don't know. Dragon Water is really good coverage. Dragon Steel is like really good typing. I'm gonna leave these in hyper competitive. I think these are both going to be good. I don't think these are going to, like, one, I don't know. Okay, so this is my problem. I don't have enough experience with legendary VGC formats to actually kind of like call these hyper competitive, because I don't think they'll see play in that format. So if they won't see play in that format, but they would see play in Ubers, then I guess I put them down here, right? I think so. I think I have to say they're both just strong. I don't think I can say they're hyper competitive. I mean, I don't even know that Ho-Oh will see play in like the VGC formats. I'm putting it in hyper competitive because I think it'll be much stronger in Ubers now with like the introduction of boots. It's just a guess. Heatran I think always falls into the role of strong, sort of like bordering on hyper competitive here. Yeah, I think Heatran, like, it's a really top tier pick in draft leagues. It's really good, like, for the quality of moves it gets, the stats, the typing. Like, Heatran does a lot here. It has a 4x weakness to ground types, but you normally just don't care. Like, you just switch out on them, and then everything else Heatran just kind of snacks on. It's like fighting in ground types, and fighting is, you know, it's 2x. So sometimes you just live those hits if they're not from, like, super strong Pokemon. I think Heatran is probably going to be in a good place. Again, just like the lack of really fantastic steel types makes any steel type that has ever been reasonable, I think, exponentially better. And I think that these two specifically are not an exception to that rule. Regigigas has never been good. Ever. This might be the first generation where it's actually decent. I'm going to speculatively put it into the role player category. Hear me out. Regigigas has never gotten Protect, so you could never protect away its slow start turns. It gets Protect now. It's never gotten Rest, so you couldn't like stall out turns and then rest to heal up. It gets Rest now. It also can sit on the field by Galarian Weezing and just negate slow start, unless there's some weird interaction in the game where Galarian Weezing Strange Steam doesn't negate Regigigas' slow start, which I could see happening. Then I think this Pokemon actually is pretty good. It has a massive base stat total, really sky high stats. I think this Pokemon stands a shot to actually be not good for the first time ever, but usable, which is, I'm just dropping pens that I'm spinning around in my hand for no reason. But it being usable is more than you can say for it for a long time. Audino's bad. I'm sorry. This might as well like not be a Pokemon. It wasn't good with its Mega. It's not going to be good now. I could be very wrong. I could be very, very wrong. This could just be like my limited experience with it, kind of shining through here. I don't think it's going to be very good. Caracosta it's kind of like a niche value pick. Like it's a Shell Smashmon. It's a Shell Smashmon that can like, I think it has Solid Rock, which makes it take less damage from super effective hits, and it gets sturdy. So it's a Shell Smashmon that you can 100% know you're going to get a Shell Smash up with. The problem is its speed stat is not great after you Shell Smash. So like it'll be a niche pick somewhere. It'll be like a value pick in a draft, but it's just a slow Shell Smashmon. It can set up Stealth Rocks too, which is pretty neat. Archeops has never been good. In the same vein that Regigigas is, I don't think it gets as many points as Regigigas does. I just don't. It like doesn't have the same stat totals. It doesn't have sort of like the same buffs where now like you can kind of negate its ability by just protecting. I think it's still just going to, like, I don't think it's bad because it's super offensive, and I think that's worth something. And you can pair it with Galarian Weezing, but before, I think you would probably slam this into bad. I mean, there are people that love using this Pokemon, like, and it's also pretty good in like very low tiers of like competitive on like Showdown or something. But this Pokemon is, I don't like, its stats and typing aren't gonna suddenly make this a VGC powerhouse just slamming it next to Weezing. Whereas like Regigigas, its stats alone might make it a little bit of a powerhouse. Okay. Giratina, I think, is, and I could be very wrong here, I'm ranking this as if it's both forms because it looks like they didn't actually put origin form on this tier list. I think Giratina normally ends up being more competitive than these two. Let me know if I'm wrong. Specifically, like, just I guess the combination of the two, because Giratina is sort of like, you know, it's like the other Great Wall, like Lugia, but it does the job better, just better typing. And then, well, does it get Roost? I don't remember if this gets Roost or not. I don't really think it's reliable recovery. Either way, Origin form is like a fantastic attacker. So I think that I'm going to slam this here. It also gets Poltergeist this generation, which is a massive, I think it's a massive buff because you don't have to wait 2 turns to attack. Even though Shadow Force or Phantom Force, those are strong attacks. They're not fantastic. I think that Poltergeist is going to make Origin form a lot scarier because it's just like an instant like ghost type nuke. Okay, this thing is just a niche pick. This is like a low tier rapid spinner for your drafts. This is not a VGC Pokemon, and this is a low tier rapid spinner on the showdown ladder. You just value pick it at the end of a draft. Victini. Oh, Cresselia first. Cresselia I think it's like a fair bit better. There's no pursuit in the game. It's already like it's the bulkiest thing on the planet. It lives way too many hits. It has reliable recovery. I'm going to put it in strong. I think it's going to see play in a lot of formats. It's almost never dominant in sort of like the singles formats, but it's always a really solid Pokemon in doubles formats. So I'm going to put it in strong. It might even, like, you might be able to argue that this should be hyper competitive, but I think I'm gonna slam it here and we're gonna move on with our life. All right, we got little Victini back. I don't think that Victini is going to be a super dominant presence, so I don't think it's gonna be hyper competitive. It's not legal in VGC, so there's no data here. But I think it's going to be a strong pickup for sure. Just like V-Create is the only move it needs really, and then every other move that it gets in addition to that is kind of just like gravy. Base 100 stats all the way down the board means that I think this thing gets expanding force, so like that's going to be a cool set to run if you can somehow like set up Psychic Terrain in your singles games. I think Victini, it's just like always strong, right? Like it's always like kind of on the borderline of like the top tiers of the showdown ladder, right? Like I don't think it's ever OU, but like maybe BL, just because it's hard to deal with. Like these V creates are nothing to play around with. So I think Victini is going to be strong. Tornadus, Therian, and Tornadus. I think that Tornadus is going to be the best Tailwind setter, or one of the best Tailwind setters in the VGC metagame, just like Prankster Tailwind. I'm going to put this into, because I think it's going to be hyper competitive in that format. This is just a guess. I could be very wrong. But I think it's going to be hyper competitive in VGC as like a good Prankster mon that also has like reasonable attacking stats. Then Therian I think is just also going to be hyper competitive. I don't think this Pokemon sees play in VGC, but it's also good in literally every other format. So like very good in like the singles format. So it's not a multi-format powerhouse. Like I don't think either of these are, because I don't think like this Tornadus never sees play, or it's like not nearly as good in singles, whereas this one is just not nearly as good in doubles. So I think together they probably both go into hyper competitive because they're really good in the formats that they are good in, but not necessarily like they don't intersect in the same way that Landorus Therian does, right? Thundurus Therian. I think this Pokemon's just strong, right? Like this Pokemon almost never sees play in sort of like the doubles formats. I don't think it's like speed tier kind of holds it back, right? Has a really high special attack stat, like insanely high. I think it's 145. It's really good in singles formats. It's never gotten fantastic coverage. It's always kind of relied on hidden power. I don't know what options it got this generation. So if it has something like, I don't think it got Air Slash or Hurricane, but if it did and I'm missing out on it, then this Pokemon might be a little bit better. I'm going to slant, I think the same. This is like kind of strange, right? But I think same. I think this Pokemon is like, I think Thundurus, well, Thundurus will be able to be, is it Defiant? Is its hidden ability? It will be able to be Defiant now, which is pretty good in sort of like a VGC format. And it'll be legal with the ability patches or capsules. I don't know. I think these are going to be strong. I think these are going to be hyper competitive. That's my initial thoughts. I could be very wrong. Landorus Therian, or sorry, Landorus Incarnate is always like hyper competitive, right? Like it normally gets banned in draft leagues and is still like a reasonable Pokemon to draft, or it gets banned with the ability Sheer Force, and it's still a reasonable Pokemon to draft. It always gets banned to Ubers. It's just like a very strong Pokemon. I don't think it's not nearly as good in doubles because it doesn't have Intimidate like Landorus Therian does. I'm gonna put it here. The fact that it gets banned so much and gets kind of like pushed out of different metagames might mean that like the way it gets played, it normally falls into strong, but like as is, the Pokemon's hyper competitive. What is this thing called? Tyrantrum? Tyrantrum. Tyranitar or Genesect? I don't know how to rate Genesect, honestly. I don't know. I'm gonna put it in strong. I really don't know how to rate Genesects. I've never once played with Genesect ever. Like I've played with everything else on this list so far. I've never once played with Genesect. I could not tell you. That makes me think it's probably just like a role player. I don't think it's like fantastic in the Ubers metagame. It's not legal in VGC, and it's if it was in Draft League, I think it would be okay. I'm gonna put it in role player. I don't know. I might be wrong here. I just never used Genesect. Tyrantrum is not a role player. It's a niche or value pick. It's just not as good. I mean, like it's a dragon type, and dragon is good typing. It's a dragon rock boy that has like pretty good stats all around, and like reasonable coverage, but like doesn't have fantastic speed and always has to dragon dance. I mean, maybe it's a role player. I think this is probably more accurate, right? Like Tyrantrum is a Pokemon you can draft on your team and expect it to pick up a ton of kills throughout a season. Aurorus is a Pokemon you pick up on your team and you're like, well, damn, this dies to Bullet Punch. But no, I mean, Aurorus isn't like, it's just not a role player. I think I feel comfortable putting Tyrantrum here, just because like the Dragon Dance sets are pretty good. You can also choice Scarf it. Like I think in singles formats, it's always reasonable. It's not gonna see play in doubles unless like, I don't know. Maybe I'm like missing some key interactions here or synergies this thing gets, but I'm gonna put here because I think this Pokemon's strong and it kind of like always shows promise in like specifically the draft format. Aurorus on the other hand is like worst hail setter, maybe like the worst, maybe not. Maybe that's a bomb of snow now. I don't know. Maybe it's ice cream cone. Who knows? It's irrelevant. Either way, this thing sets hail and then does refrigerate things. It's not very good. Carbink is bad, right? I've never seen this thing used once. This is another Pokemon I've never used even once. I've never once wanted to like even catch a Carbink in game. I couldn't tell you what this Pokemon does other than I know it has really, really high defense stats. It's not good. I think it probably sets up Stealth Rocks, which is not even a good thing anymore because of heavy duty boots. Like Stealth Rocks is effectively not as potent as it used to be. These two Pokemon are multi-format powerhouses, with sort of like an emphasis on Xerneas here, like probably being the strongest Pokemon in this tier list, unless we've been given something that like specifically destroys Xerneas, which I think Zacian might. Zacian's the fairy steel dog from Sword and Shield, right? I don't know if it's Zacian or Zamazenta. I think Zamazenta is the shield boy and Zacian's sword boy. But whichever one is steel fighting and gets Behemoth Blade, that might be sort of like the Xerneas killer. But I think people thought that about Solgaleo, and Solgaleo was in fact not the Xerneas killer. So maybe I'm just wrong. Also, I'm realizing that Solgaleo and Lunala aren't in this list. Are they already in the games? I don't know. I'll talk about where I would rank them. I just realized that they're not on this list. Can you already get them? I don't think you can. That's weird. Zydog is, I think, a role player. It's like fine in sort of like draft league formats. Like it's a fine role player Pokemon. I don't think it's fantastic. It's a fast attacking dragon ground type. It's like a worse Garchomp and a worse Zygarde, right? Because it doesn't have the bulk. Zygarde has been historically hyper competitive. It's really good. And it's really, really good in Draft League. I think it got banned on Showdown, like on the Smogon meta of the last generation. It's just the move 1,000 Arrows is so good. The move 1,000 Arrows is so very good. So this Pokemon, it just like, It's like the perfect combination of like moves, because Thousand Arrows plus Dragon Stab is really, really good coverage. Thousand Arrows has no switch ends whatsoever. Like the combination of these two like attacking types has no switch ends. You can Dragon Dance, you can Coil, you can Choice Band. It gets extreme speed. This Pokemon is hyper competitive. I don't think it's a multi-format powerhouse, but it is hyper competitive. Complete Form, this is another Pokemon I've never used. I'm going to put it in hyper competitive. I know that it's kind of like designated to the Ubers tier on Showdown. I've never drafted it. I'm sure it would be nuts in draft. I don't think anyone's going to let it be legal unless it's an Ubers format. I don't know how good this thing is in doubles. It could be very good, and maybe I'm underselling it, but I don't think it's on the same level as like Xerneas, Yveltal, Groudon, Kyogre, Rayquaza. I just don't. I think it's probably fine, but I don't know if I have enough faith in it to put it in multi-format powerhouse. I'm probably gonna have to go and fine tune this, because on this list, like now all of a sudden Latios looking real weak on this list. I don't know. I'm gonna leave it for now. Okay, Deontay is going to be a niche value pick. Without its mega, it's really just like a defensive, Pokemon that sets up Stealth Rocks and has like pretty good attacks, like pretty good coverage, but is really slow and not offensive enough to take advantage of the really good coverage that it has. Volcanion, is that what this thing's called? Volcanion. I think it is probably going to be strong. It's like almost impossible to switch in on it. It's Steam Eruption is the signature ability, right? This thing's impossible to switch in on in the Draft League formats, just because the like type combination is insane, and you get a lot of mileage out of that type combination. But also, I think this thing has been historically good in sort of like singles metagames, so I'm gonna put it in strong. I don't think it's hyper competitive. I think it's better than a role player. I think strong is a good place to put it. Oh man. All right. So let me start off by saying I think that Tapu Fini is going to be the worst Tapu by a mile here. And I still think it's going to be hyper competitive. Hyper competitive might be upselling it too much. I think it's going to be good. Every single one of these Tapus is going to be a multi-format powerhouse. I don't think that's like an arguable thing. I think it's just the truth. I don't think you can say that these are not going to be insane. Like Tapu Koko gets Rising Voltage now. That's insane. It's historically been insane in VGC, really good in singles. Lele is always banned in draft leagues because it's really oppressive. It's also good in VGC. Bulu used to be the worst. Now it gets Grassy Glide. So it's, I don't know, maybe a better Rillaboom because it also has Play Rough now. Like Bulu might be better than Tapu Koko now, which is kind of weird to say. It would make me very happy if that was the case. But yeah, I think these three are going to be multi-format powerhouses. Finny, I think, is going to be hyper competitive. Like, I don't think it's going to be the dominant Tapu at all. I really don't. I think that Bulu was always sort of the worst Tapu, at least by, statistics, right? Like usage stats, how everybody viewed the Tapus, because Bulu is inherently the one with like the biggest weakness, right? Like Bulu just gets killed by Poison Spit. None of these have 4 times weaknesses, except Bulu. So Bulu is like, I think, considered, the weakest on that. And it also had like the most middling speed tier. Now it just gets Grassy Glide and none of that matters. That's okay. Oh, Solgaleo and Lunala are for sure in the game because Necrozma's in the game. All right, they're not being added. I don't know where I would put them though. I would probably put Solgaleo in multi-format powerhouse and Lunala somewhere in strong is my guess. Necrozma, I think, is very good. I would put it in hyper competitive because it's insane in VG, or not insane in VGC. It's insane in Draft League, and it's at least decent in singles. So I'd put it in hyper competitive. Okay, moving on. We have the Ultra Beasts left, and it looks like that's it. So Kartana is going to be a multi-format powerhouse. Kind of for the same reason Bulu is. It now gets Grassy Glide, you double up on grass types, and then Kartana goes to town. It's always been insane in like draft, singles, in VGC. I think Kartana is going to be nuts. And it's also, again, it's the best steel type out of all the steel types. I've brought up the steel type argument for. So there's that. Let's see. I'm gonna not go in super order here. I'm slamming all these in bad. Not that they're bad, it's just like you wouldn't use these in any of the formats I'm discussing today. Like you wouldn't use these in VGC, you wouldn't use these in like a draft league. I mean, you might. if you were really, really strapped for options. But the one out of all of these Pokemon, the two I think you would draft would be like Combuskin and Golbat. I think there are enough good dragon types now that there's really no point in ever drafting Gabite. But anyways, moving along, I'm just slamming these all down here. I don't think they're bad Pokemon. Like, I actually love using Golbat as like a really bulky Pokemon with Eviolite. But anyways, I don't want to like try and discuss that out and figure out where they go. Nihilego, I think it ends up being strong. It's always been kind of cool as like two like dual hazard Pokemon, like it's Stealth Rocks and Toxic Spikes. I think just hazards in general have received kind of a massive nerf. Like in the Draft League format in singles, you can't waste time setting up hazards because the timer is an issue. Like hazards just aren't as prevalent. And also, again, the addition of heavy duty boots means that like a lot of things just get to come in and defog for free. The type combination is still really good though. Like Rock Poison, this thing is not good against steel types, even a little bit. I don't think it gets Earth Power. At least I don't think it ever has gotten Earth Power. And I think it's kind of been its downfall. But if you set up, like, if you make your game plan to be like, oh, I'm going to make sure Nihilego can win, or Nihilego, however you want to pronounce it, then Nihilego is a good Pokemon. Pheromosa, I think, is hyper competitive. It's always been banned in sort of like the singles formats. It's too fast. It hits too hard. I think it's way too frail for VGC. It dies to a lot of priority attacks, so it takes like a massive amount of damage. I also don't think it's going to be super fantastic in like a max meta, so I don't see it being super dominant in VGC. I would love to be proven wrong. I think Pheromosa is a really cool Pokemon. I think it kind of got snubbed out really, really early in Gen 7's life cycle. But I think it'll be hyper competitive. I just think like the speed tier and the fact that both of its offensive stats are like really high is gonna do it a lot of good. What is this thing called? Buzzwole. Buzzwole. I think a lot of the Ultra Beasts are gonna fall into strong, right? I don't think I would put Buzzwole in hyper competitive either. I think I would just put it in strong. It's always been like good. Like it's a good Pokemon. It's not something that you would draft in the first like 3 to 4 picks normally, but the type combination is interesting. Stats are good. It's just like kind of slow. Circuitry has always been, I think, considered like one of the lesser Ultra Beasts, but still really strong. Mono Electric is like a fantastic typing. It's just like never really gotten coverage. It gets Rising Voltage this generation, which makes me think like it probably is going to be good, just because it gets Rising Voltage. I'm not going to put it in Role Player. I'm going to put it in Strong. I think Rising Voltage is enough where you can just like double up on electric types, like pair Tapu Koko and Circuitry on the same team, and like all of a sudden like, oh, now we're just like hitting really, really hard hitting Rising Voltages. I think this thing's special attack stat is like 173 or 174. So like the Rising Voltages coming off of its attack stat aren't going to tickle. Celesteela has always been a multi-format powerhouse. Like considered the top 3 picks in Draft League. Really, really good, like kind of annoying Pokemon to beat out in VGC. Like kind of sort of similar to like a Ferrothorn or a Corviknight, where like its bulk is what wins at games, and you just like can't die. Like if your opponent doesn't have a way to kill Celesteela, you just win basically. And also just really good in singles. Like Celesteela it's a good threat, and has like also doesn't have to just run bulky sets. Like you can run sort of like these autonomized like offensive sets, and it's very good. So Celesteela, multi-format powerhouse. This is probably controversial. Guzzlord is, I don't even know if I'd call it a value pick. I don't know. Like, I want to just slam it in bad. It's never been good. It's like combination of stats, it's move pool, like it's typing. The typing's cool. Like Hydreigon is a Dragon Dark type and is seen as very, very good on multiple formats. This thing, I think, is a Dark Dragon that's very mediocre at everything it does. I would love to slam it in bad, but it's not nearly on the same. Let's just cut off here, right? Like we'll stop at a Carbink. Like it's not nearly on this level of bad. I don't think, but I don't think it's good. Naganadel is hyper competitive. Well, I think so. You're never going to see it in draft leagues. It's always going to be banned. It's always like in Ubers on Pokemon Showdown. But I think it's like a really strong Pokemon. It's really strong. I don't think it's going to be like killer in VGC because it's a little bit too frail for that. And I don't think it does enough for hyper offense, but it is a cool Pokemon. I don't know. A lot of these Beast Boost Pokemon might be like really terrifying in VGC, and I'm kind of like selling them short. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. Stakataka has always been kind of like a role player Pokemon, like a Trick Room Sweeper. I'm going to put it in role player. I could be like selling it a little bit short here, but I think Stakataka has always been like a little bit of a role player Pokemon. Like you don't ever want to... This wouldn't be, I don't think, a fantastic max candidate. I mean, it's really, really bulky. So maybe that gets it a lot more points as far as like being a max candidate. But I think that I think it's going to be a role player. I think like it'll make a good Trick Room piece. I think that being able to boost your defensive stats with Beast Boost could be neat, but it's not like in the same vein as Celesteela, right? Like it's not going to become unkillable because it's a rock steel. Like it's just gonna die to earthquakes and fighting type moves. So Blacephalon, I think I would put in strong, and I think this, I mean, I would hope that's like a universal opinion. Blacephalon has like really high special attack stat. Its coverage isn't fantastic, but ghost type stab just goes a long way. Ghost type is like really spammable. I mean, even though normal is just completely immune, Ghost type is just like a really spammable attack. Like it's just a really spammable type. I know I just said that 5 times in a row. It's really, really late. You have to cut me some leeway here. It's really late, but I think this Pokemon gets kind of a lot out of like such a small kit. I don't think it got any fantastic additions this generation. I just think it's going to be a generally strong Pokemon. Like it won't be a super high pick and draft tier. It probably won't be OU on like the Smogon ladders. And I don't think it's going to tear up the VGC format. I don't think it's going to be used in the VGC format. But I think it will be good. And I think it's going to be strong in like all of those formats except VGC. I don't think it's going to be strong there. I think it's going to be strong sort of like in singles and in draft. So that's it. This is the tier list. That wasn't so bad. The only things I would reassess here are I think Latios and Latios might be too high. But again, if you disagree with anything that I'm saying or anything that I put on this list, like just let me know, because I am willing to admit that I might not be right. My VGC experience is pretty limited here. I'm kind of going off of what I understand based on the current metagame that I play in and what I understand based on past metagames I played in, which is like very, very limited. In draft, I think if this was just a draft league list, one, you'd have to take out all the legendaries. I would be very comfortable saying like putting everything in these tiers in sort of like a draft league tier list. And then as far as like singles go for like the showdown meta, I think that I would also be pretty comfortable there. So I guess VGC is like the one limiting factor because I don't know how a lot of the legendaries fit into the game, right? Like I'm not super comfortable saying like Palkia and Dialga are strong or hyper competitive. So that's that. All right. Thank you so much for watching. It means the absolute most. If you enjoy this kind of content and you're enjoying tier lists, then please leave a like on the video. It would mean the absolute most to me once again. All right, so that's it. That is the tier list. All right, so that's it. That's the tier list. If you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like on it. If you want to see more tier list content, then give me a tier list topic in the comment section down below. I would love to hear from you. Please remember the t-shirts, the Twitch, and the YouTube subs. Those are the best ways to support me right now. You can check out the Teespring and the Twitch links in the description down below. Go pick up a sweet t-shirt, go follow me on Twitch, and subscribe here on YouTube if you haven't already. Other than that, I am kind of done here and I have to leave. It's really late and I'm tired. I hope that you enjoyed this, and thank you so much for giving me some of your time. All right. Bye. Oh, you made it to the end of the video. That's dope. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to see more from me and make it to the end of those videos, there will be a video here and a video here. This one is a video that I think is really good, and this is what YouTube recommends. So you should watch one of them. Okay, thanks.